stereotype of being an angry Black woman. I was meant to be in this room. I've proven myself. I know what I'm talking about. And I'm on that spectrum. Like, I'm friendly. Like, I am happy. I am a bubbly person. But I also feel internally I have to prove myself.
If we walk into a room with the narrative that you all think I'm not enough, that shows up in our body, because we're never going to get anywhere if we can't even have a conversation about our skin, which is the largest organ on our body. You're defending yourself all the time. It's exhausting.
What's up, you guys? It's your girl, Bianca Bee, and welcome to the Bianca Bee Show, where we talk about business, finances, and friendships. I'm super excited about today's guest, Natalie Haynes. She is an educator, registered psychotherapist, and speaker with over 15 years of experience in her private practice. Her signature program, the Comfortable Race Conversation Process, helps individuals navigate uncomfortable conversations about race. I'm super excited to talk about this because I feel like this is something that we experience on a day-to-day, and we can get uncomfortable about those types of conversations, especially when it comes to race, especially through like a climate of today. So, Natalie, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I love to start each show, with a little icebreaker question. My question for you is, what's one habit or practice you think everyone should incorporate to be more inclusive in their daily lives? Not just the workplace, but daily lives.
Well, that's easy. And it's actually kind of an interesting little experiment that I give my participants in my program. And it's literally just bringing your attention to your feet and noticing them where they meet the floor. Mm-hmm. So that space where they meet the floor automatically almost brings you out of your head and into your body. And by being in your body, you have more access to, notice what you're experiencing as you're talking to someone. Mm-hmm. So, maybe you are, if you're having a conversation with someone, you'll notice, you might notice their responses. So that little thing of just noticing your feet is actually a really interesting,
mm-hmm. Because people don't really pay attention to that. I never thought about that concept.
No, we're so busy talking. We're just thinking about what we're saying and wanting to, say the same thing. And I think slowing down just helps us listen a little bit more.
Got it. Yeah. And let's get a little bit of your background. How did you become a psychotherapist? How did you know, okay, this is what I want to do? And then pivot into, your program, the Comfortable Race Conversation Process. If you could just tell us a little bit about your background.
I'm super anxious sometimes, and I don't understand why. I'm always second guessing my thoughts, didn't feel comfortable in my own skin, and I started to go to therapy. Mm-hmm. So over time, as I became a client, I realized that wow, I actually really get this, and this is something that I want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I started to go to school as I was working. So that was sort of how the transition happened. And then finally one day after both my kids were born, I said, that's it. I'm going to make the full jump. But in that time, I went to 2 different psychotherapy schools and eventually left my corporate job. Mm-hmm. And so, your question about, how did I come into creating this program around having comfortable conversations about race? Actually came from myself, because growing up, I couldn't talk about race. I had a very difficult time being comfortable in my own skin. I had a very difficult time, even feeling proud of being Black, which was really sad to me, mm-hmm. and shaming. And I just didn't understand why. My sister was I just saw how different people responded differently. Yeah. And so in my therapy journey, my own self-discovery, that process, I started to learn wow, I have a lot of feeling of shame around this. And I don't approach this topic because I feel uncomfortable about what I believe, about what I think about myself. And in relation, what I think about myself changes how I see other people, or how I imagine other people see me. Mm-hmm. I learned all of that through my psychotherapy journey, that, we have to go within and notice that discomfort, staying with it, actually tells us a lot about ourselves and how we show up in the world.
Mhm.
So when George Floyd was murdered,
Mhm.
I had I just had this epiphany watching all these people online trying to communicate, and all of a sudden everybody wants to talk about it, and there's all this pain on one side, and there's all this almost like surprise in the fact that this is actually true. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is like what happens in therapy. People
Yeah.
are trying to connect and say something to the other person and not able to actually hear the other person.
Yeah.
And I thought, how are we ever going to get anywhere? And so, in my journey with specifically Gestalt psychotherapy, it was really with, noticing what I was experiencing in my body, being able to be with that discomfort, slowing down and noticing in a present way, what was I thinking when I had this feeling? What did I feel or think when I looked at someone else? How did I show up in a conversation? Like
Yeah.
all the underneath stuff under the words. And I thought that's what this issue needs, because we're never going to get anywhere if we can't even have a conversation about our skin, which
Yeah.
is the largest organ on our body. Like we can't get away from it,
Yeah.
right? And so everyone has some kind of psychological connection to their race,
Yeah.
some kind of relationship to the concept of race. And in my own journey, by exploring that, I was able to fully embody myself
Mhm.
and define what it meant for me to be Black rather than what the world told me. And that's what I want for all people, like all people. So that's, sort of that's been my journey. It was really me creating this was like through becoming a psychotherapist and infusing this necessary piece into the conversation, because it is uncomfortable. There's no
Yeah.
question about it. It's hard to have this conversation. We've been
Mhm.
taught not to. We're taught to have it in siloed places, and that's not working.
Yeah.
It's not working.
I love that you brought up, you going to therapy, and that's how you became a psychotherapist. I just started my first year of therapy and I'm an advocate for it now. I love
Yeah.
therapy. And something that, I really struggled with was I am from Detroit. I'm from the hood and I grew up in the hood. And I was given these opportunities, and sometimes being the only woman of color in these big corporations, it's been a transition between my old life and my new life. And a part of me is like, I'm a confident person naturally, but sometimes when I'm in these rooms with people who don't look like me, it is
Mhm.
uncomfortable.
Oh yeah.
It's something I definitely struggle with, and I know other Black women, struggle with it when they're the only one in a room. So I kind of wanted to talk about the business side of things for women who are successful, because nowadays we see that a lot of Black women are successful and in these rooms, sometimes being the only person. What advice can you give to people with feeling comfortable with being a Black woman and kind of that tug of war of like their old life versus their new life? And am I appropriating? Am I code switching? Should I not?
Yes.
I know
And
it's such a broad question, but
no, but I know what you mean. It's important.
yeah, like a lot of women I know struggle with
Hmm. Well, what I would say to women is like I said at the beginning, like that whole process of slowing down and
that.
noticing what, how do you feel about you as a Black woman in these spaces? When you're sitting in a room, what's the thoughts that are running through your head as you're having a conversation? I'm not saying that, um, I'm not saying that, uh, that there is, that racism is, I'm not saying that racism is not there. So hold on to that thought for 1 second. What I am saying is, what are you experiencing in the moment? And what thoughts are you having about you? And what thoughts are you having about the person who's in front of you that you might be speaking to? If we walk into a room with the narrative that you all think I'm not enough,
Mm,
that shows up in our body. For me, that showed up in my body and I would make myself smaller. For other people, it emboldens them and it says, don't you dare say that I'm less than. Right? But notice how that's all about, how the response is all about what we imagine the other person is thinking about us.
Mm.
And what those thoughts might be. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is noticing your own,
Mm.
because those thoughts of how I see myself or how I imagine the other person sees us may be from what, like all the stories we've been told or that we hear, or our past experiences that may not be true right now in the moment. We never know what the person in front of us is actually thinking,
Mm.
right? We
Yeah.
don't know.
Assume. We
We
assume.
assume.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. If I walk into a room and I say that this is who I am as a Black woman, I am, I'm passionate about what I'm doing. I feel really strongly about whatever I'm talking about, whatever it might be, and just own that space. That's important, because otherwise the definition of who you are comes from the outside. It
Mm.
comes from the past experiences of the pain and trauma that, we've been through, or what we imagine is, what people in front of us are actually thinking. But we don't know. We know the pain, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the person in front of us is doing the same thing,
Got it.
right? Yeah, that's the piece. And how are we responding to that? That also is important. You'll know in your body,
Mm-hmm.
you'll know. So that's what I would recommend, because, or what I suggest is, like, really listen to yourself and how you see yourself and how you think other people see you,
Mm.
and notice, like, if you're automatically assuming, then you're doing something in your body that's going to respond to that, you know? So it's like bringing your attention back to yourself and taking that power of defining who you are within you, not out of what we imagine someone else thinks.
Got it.
Yeah.
I love that, because I was already thinking in my head of how I show up in a room. And sometimes I show up as, I always say there's two type of people. It's the bubbly ones, the
Mm.
super animated, and then it's the, stereotype of being an angry Black woman. I was meant to be in this room. I've proven myself. I know what I'm talking about, and I'm on that spectrum. And I want to get to a place of, like, I'm friendly, like I am happy, I am a bubbly person, but I also feel internally I have to prove myself, on a day to day. I don't speak like how other people speak. Oh, is my accent coming out? And so all these things come in your head, and all these insecurities come in your head. How do you, tune that out? It's
Mm.
easier said than done. And I know you just mentioned, like not projecting and like not assuming what other people are thinking of you, but it's really, really hard for some
It's
people.
really hard. Yeah, I do not say that that is an easy thing to do. I
Yeah.
do not, and I even struggle with that.
Hmm.
you know and so, no, I'm not. But when you were sharing just now, because it made me so curious about you, were like, I'm like friendly, and I want to show this side of myself, and I want to show who I am, not who you think, and prove that I'm not who you think I am. But do you see that how the energy is different for those two places?
Yeah.
If I'm improving, I'm noticing every single thing that you're doing, and I am trying to anticipate how you might see me as less than,
Hmm.
right? As opposed to, like, if you were to tell me about you, like, like about a moment that, like, when you were talking about yourself and you're smiling, I wanted to know, like, tell me more about that part of you, like, when you think about yourself as a friendly person, and bubbly and happy, and, well, not maybe, you said you're sort of in the middle ground. Like, can you tell me about one memory that you have that would define that, or would describe that, or would
I think,
demonstrate that?
yeah, I think moments like this, talking to other people and like hearing other people's stories and being on camera, I think that makes me happy, And sometimes when I'm a talent booker, I have a corporate job. I book for TV and news and weather and stuff like that. And sometimes I feel like I have to defend myself, like
Right.
this defensive wall comes up. And it's like, who is this person? That's not Bianca. Like,
Mhm.
where does that come? And I don't know where it comes from. And it's like a day-to-day thing. And I'm making it about myself, but like going into, the new year, this is something I do want to change about myself in a workspace,
Right.
because I know there's a part of me who has this guard up, but why?
Yeah.
Like, who are you trying to prove, and I know so many other women, I've had conversations with other Black women, and it's like, why do we have to put on this armor? It's like this armor of like, I'm meant to be here.
Yeah. Well, two things. One, we needed the armor,
Hmm.
right? There's no question about that. And two, it's like in the moment, do I need it? So you're saying, oh my gosh, this shows up even when I don't even know if I don't even think I need it, right? Yeah. So when you were describing yourself as like when you're saying like in moments like this, when I'm having conversation, learning about people's stories, like how do you feel inside?
I feel good.
Like bubbly, like, and do you notice what your body feels like? Does it feel like
It feels more open compared
yeah,
to if I'm in a work setting, I'm like more like this and like serious, too serious.
okay. So even if you bring, if you like experiment with every once in a while, bringing this energy into that space, telling your body, like, you know what, like, I love this energy of openness, and just kind of holding in that space,
Mhm.
and really bringing your attention to what you're experiencing in your body as you walk into that room,
Mm,
whatever room that might be. Two, anytime that armor does come up, notice what happened right before that. Like, did you have an experience where someone said something to you? Or did you have an experience where it's like really quickly, like, you know what, this person sounds like that person, and I've had to defend myself with them in the past. What about, like, is that why that armor is coming up?
mm,
That armor is our brain's way of saying, that's like a hot stove, and we
mm,
burnt ourselves the last time. So let's not burn ourselves again. We're going to brace ourselves so we're not going to get hurt again.
mm.
But our brain isn't attached to the outside world, so it doesn't know if it's true or not. All it knows is that it's telling our body that this smells like danger. But we actually can say, you know what, this is what's happening now. Using your example, I don't know if this person in front of me I have to protect myself from. So I'm going to be who I am as Bianca,
Mhm.
and I'm going to be this, and find out if the person does happen to be someone that you have to defend yourself from. Trust me, you'll know what to do.
Yeah.
That's in your body. But to allow yourself the freedom to experience your full self in the moment, that's also our right,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
Not to be in defensive mode. That's why we get so tired.
Yeah.
Because that's, if you're defending yourself all the time, it's exhausting,
Yeah.
right?
I
So
never thought to like your body language. I never put that with my mindset with my body. I've never heard it from that perspective. And you do something so well, you have something on your social media page that I want to talk about. Fixed
mhm,
mindset versus growth mindset. I
mhm.
love that. If you can just elaborate what that means.
So a fixed mindset is just a mindset of like, I know what I know, I'm right. Um, there's no growth. There's no, if I'm always right, then I don't have room to be mistaken or wrong,
Mhm.
right? And that's the problem. We learn through our mistakes. People are here. We are not perfect beings, and if we only look at everything from a mixed mindset, like I know this, I'm supposed to know this, and I'm supposed to know all about you, and I'm supposed to know all about me, we're never going to learn anything.
Yeah.
Like, you can hear how limiting it is. But to have a growth mindset is to allow yourself to be in the place where, you know what, sometimes I'm going to get it wrong, sometimes you're going to get it wrong, and we're going to actually learn about this together. So whenever I teach my courses, like, what I share with people is that the space that we're in, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no good, there's no bad. it just is what it is. We're using this opportunity to learn about this topic that's really hard, really uncomfortable, in a neutral way.
Mm-hmm. And something I also, people are also uncomfortable with talking about pay ranges and salary as well. How do you get comfortable? I just recently started getting comfortable with asking my colleagues, like, how much do you make? Just so I know, especially if I want to move forward in life and go to a different company, I start asking my counterparts and other bookers, what's your salary? How much do you make? Okay, interesting, and things like that. How can you get comfortable with asking those questions from your colleagues as well? I know we talk about race, but, finances as well.
Yeah. What makes you uncomfortable? That's the first place to start.
Mm,
What do you imagine is going to happen?
got
What's
it.
your discomfort telling you about how you imagine that conversation is going to go?
Mhm.
Because it likely will come down to how might they see me, you know, um, and I guess it depends on who you're asking,
Yeah.
right? Um, and some people might not want to share because they just don't want to share,
Yeah.
or if it's a leader or HR or your boss or whatever, maybe it's your boss as an example, like you may be anticipating how that conversation may go.
Got it.
1, 2, do you feel worthy?
Mm,
Do you feel worthy? And if you're in this place of I have to prove myself to you because I automatically think you don't think that I'm enough. And I'm not saying that there aren't people I'm not saying that people don't see each other. People see each other that way. I know that they do. But to show up like I am worthy and I know that I deserve this. If you're not in the right place, you'll know from that conversation. But to even feel worthy to have the conversation, I think that's the place to start, right? Money's energy.
Yeah.
Money's energy.
It is.
Yeah.
And, what are like 3 mantras or affirmations or, advice or tips that, strategic tips that people can take on their day-to-day life with you and like your tips and advice?
Be slow.
Mm-hmm.
Slow down. Be present with your body and with who you, and around you. What are you noticing? And be curious.
Mm.
Be curious. Be in the place of not knowing.
Mm.
I don't know what this person in front of me really thinks and believes. I'm just going to be me.
I love that. And I also love that you mentioned, have grace. A lot of us struggle with that, like having grace for other people because you really don't know what that other person went through that day or what they're going through, and projecting, other people's, oh, this person doesn't like me and things like that. That's definitely a mindset shift. It's really hard taking it day by day. Change your mindset. It's the everyday battle.
Yeah, but you bring up that point you're saying of when it's hard to do that, even honoring that space of like that might be an indicator that there's some stuff in your background that you need to look at and process, because if we don't, we will project it all over everyone else.
Thank you
That's
so
important
much.
too. Yeah, thank you.
I appreciate you. I took away so many gems from this interview. Like, I can't wait to edit it because I'm like, I'm going to take some of her tips. I just want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to me. For people who want to follow you or get coaching or consulting from you, where can they find you?
So you can find me on Instagram and LinkedIn, Natalie Haynes Consulting, at Natalie Haynes Consulting. And the program that I teach, the Comfortable Race Conversation Process, starts again January 23rd. And that's bit.ly. You'll have the link, but it's bit.ly. Just look up the Comfortable Race Conversation Process. You'll find me. And also I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram it's Bianca Bee, at Bianca Bee Show. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. Taking it slow. I'm going to start speaking slowly. Thank you.
Bianca Bee, beat it. Bianca Bee, beat it. Bianca Bee, beat it. Bianca Bee.